Since so many of you requested it, let's make this Cannabis Book Week. I'll have 3 today, one for beginners, one for intermediate, and one for experts, and I would love to hear about your favorite books about our favorite plant. I'm Lex Pelger. I do Canna education for CV Sciences, the makers of Plus CBD, with excellent CBD, THC, PEA, CBDA, and CBN products. This one I'm always recommending, Smoke Signals by Martin Lee. He is the powerhouse behind Project CBD, which is a great website of resources. And also, he's a journalist who's been covering this his whole life. And as someone who's trying to write a completionist book about this is the best 300 pages on cannabis I've seen by anybody. And he goes through the entire human history, a great dive on the science, and especially on the prohibition and how medical cannabis rolled out across the states. If you want one book to read in your lifetime about this plant, this is absolutely the book to do it. Next up for our intermediate students, if you want to learn about prohibition, The Marijuana Conviction by Bonnie and Whitebread is a classic for a reason. It only came out in the mid-70s, and so it has a really strong focus on the earliest days of prohibition. And contrary to rumors you might have heard about industrial conspiracies against hemp and cannabis, that wasn't it. It was racism. It was homegrown American racism. And what's really impressive about this book specifically is how, as one reviewer said, they weave together the sociological, psychological, medical, political, and legal strands. They use archives from the Drug Enforcement Police. They listen to the stories of people in the real world. It is a fabulous look at the history of control of this plant. And I think anyone who is smoking or using this plant should be aware of how much darkness is around its coming into prominence in the United States. Lastly, for our experts who have a bit of a budget for their cannabis books, this is Cannabis Evolution and Ethnobotany by Merlin and Clark. And if you've been following along my channel for a while, you've seen me refer to this a few times already, but it is a textbook. And it is the entire history of human use. What's really cool is they take the very first archaeological evidence and then they go through the first writings by all of the great medicine writers of the world and the Herodotus, but then move through the Middle Ages and the Arabic doctors with all of these stories, some fun, some not, and then the folklore. One thing I didn't know about is how important hemp was in the folklore of Europe. All these things about getting pregnant, getting married. In Korea, did you know, and Korea and Japan, did you know that hemp was the fabric of mourning? And for sumo, hemp is the only fabric allowed to be used or worn by sumo fighters. And so it goes on and on up until how cannabis arrived in North America. And so for anyone who wants to learn about the complete history, this is a fantastic piece of work that is very academically rigorous, but also really fun to read. So, for my experts, here you go, and let me know what your favorites are.